So what I think would look really cool in here, a 23 karat gold portrait of Clint Eastwood. So I'm going to make one. Hi, I'm Paul, the Happy Gilder. Welcome to my channel. As I said, in this video, I'm going to be covering a process of creating a portrait with 23 karat gold leaf. Now, I'm going to go through the process of cleaning the glass because we need that super pristine because I want this as a mirror finish gold. Then the process of kind of drawing the portrait. Now, there is going to be a lot of freehand work in this, but it's nothing like freehand painting, and you certainly don't need to be able to draw. Got a few cheats in there where we can use some software to get the basic outline and do a bit of tracing. But before I crack on with that, if you're a fan of reverse glass, sign painting, gold leaf, digital techniques and much more, then you're in the right place because that's all this channel's about, and I'll try to release a video every couple of weeks. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, there's a link to my Patreon in the description. I reward my patrons with a different vector design every month, early release to the video, credit them at the beginning of the video, and I also upload bits and bobs throughout each month here and there, so it's worth taking a look. There's also a link to my Etsy shop where I'm selling some of my designs, and to the Happy Gilder Facebook group where we're about 750 strong now. Really good place. Everyone's sharing ideas, helping each other out. I think anyone could learn something from there. I've certainly learned a lot myself. Anyway, that out of the way, let's crack on with it. Okay, so first up, I'm going to get this bit of glass clean. Now, just a little tip, this is an old yoga mat. Really handy, just cut up into different sizes of the normal bits of glass that you'd use. And, you know, they're so soft, you can just sort of, not worry about kind of banging it. Used to use the kind of sticky pads that go on the bottom, but they lose their stick, and this is just something that rolls up and, yeah, ever so handy. Anyway, thought I'd share that tip. What I'm going to be using to clean the glass is this. I'm not going to try and pronounce it, but you can buy this. I know I found a link to a place in Canada that sells it, and I'll put that in the description, and you can buy it on Amazon in the UK. Really good stuff. If you can't get hold of it, Bonami is the kind of original stuff people use, and most people would have used cake Bonami, which is a similar thing, like a sort of chalky block where you'd kind of rub in it, but the powder is the same, despite reviews saying it's not. I had a whole tin of cake Bonami powder, and I used it on glass before I found this stuff, and it's absolutely brilliant. Anyway, what I want to do is, for starters, you get a little sponge with this, just dip that in some water, and then just kind of rub around to kind of get some of this on your sponge. And then just going to kind of scrub around the whole pane of glass, applying a decent amount of pressure and sort of just working around and scrubbing just in case there's any like kind of water spots or anything like that. And that's looking good. Next, what I'm going to do is, using a plastic scraper, and I strongly recommend this is plastic, just going to run this over and sort of scrape this off. That just makes sure if there's any bits of grit, or not even grit, just raised bits of a sort of muck, it scrapes them off. It's just an extra sort of level of precaution, I suppose. The reason I wouldn't use a metal blade, if you get even the tiniest little nick in a metal blade and scrape that across here, you've got a great big scratch across your bit of glass. Even if it's a new blade, you know, putting it on, you've got to put it on so perfectly flat. Even if you just put it on and move it a bit with a corner with a metal blade, you're going to scratch it. But plastic, don't have to worry about that. So you can kind of just push nice and hard and along that. You can hear that. Getting squeaky clean. Just going to kind of do this over the whole thing. Pretty happy with that. That looks good. Get that one last little scrub on here. I say one last scrub. I'm going to do this a couple of times. It's always best to be overcautious when it comes to cleaning glass, because you gut it if you've just wasted something as expensive as gold leaf on a dirty bit of glass. Right, now with that done, just going to use standard kitchen roll and then start rubbing it off. So I'll start by rubbing the bulk of it off. And start really sort of working it and scrubbing it. Already here, well, I don't know if you can hear, but that's starting to squeak now, which is Good sign that glass is clean. That'll do for pass one, and then just going to do another one, just for shits and giggles. There you go, and that's how I would clean a bit of glass prior to applying gold leaf. Anyway, let's move on and apply the gold leaf. Right, so we're ready to apply the gold leaf now, and I'm not going to do this as a gilding tutorial because I've done quite a few of those, so I'm going to put a link up in the top corner of the screen and a link in the description to a playlist that covers all of the techniques of applying gold leaf to glass. But I will time-lapse it and lay the first few leaves. But just want to say this little thing here is a laptop cooling stand that I got because my laptop's crap, and it works perfectly for just holding panes of glass. It's got the rubber bits on the sort of back and this bit, so you're not going to chip it. So yeah, really handy little thing. So let's get started and lay a couple of leaves. Now I do want a mirror finish gild on this, but that doesn't change anything. Even though I haven't done many videos about mirror finish gilding, it's exactly the same. Using the same size mix, applying it with the same tools, burnishing it after each application. I would normally, for a mirror finish gild, aim to go for 2 layers. There might be a few gaps after that require touching up, but 2 layers it will normally suffice. So let's just firstly get a leaf on the gilder's tip. There you go. Get this on there, and you cannot apply this too thick. The more the better. Don't want any kind of gaps here. There, that's gone on lovely. So what I'll do is I'll do the rest as a time lapse, just so that you haven't got to hear me talking through doing a process that you can see in much more detail elsewhere. Okay. Right, so I've got my mirrored piece of glass, well, gold mirrored piece of glass. Now I need to make a kind of stencil so that I know where to do my illustration, really. So just jump across into the laptop now and show you how I'm going to do that. So this is a portrait of Clint Eastwood that I got off Google. I wasn't particularly looking for a picture of Clint Eastwood. I was looking for really high contrast portraits, you know, with lots of sort of definition to the face. And I thought, this is just such a good picture, and it'll be perfect for what I want to do with it. So the first thing that I want to do is make myself a kind of basic outline just in black. And all I'm going to do to do that is go to Image, Adjustments, and Threshold. And what I want to do is just move this to a point where I can just sort of discern all of the main features that I want to. I reckon there, because there I can start seeing where the sort of cheekbones come in, still see the eyes and the nose and stuff like that. So I think that's about right. I will say at this point, the best thing you can do here is to print this out. Now, I haven't got a printer, so I'm going to do something that is just not ideal, but if you haven't got a printer, it might work for you as well. So this resized to the size you want it, which you would go to image size. I'm using a 10 by 8 inch piece of glass. So let's go to inches. Not perfect, but obviously I didn't gild the whole area, but I'd probably bring that in a little bit. Now, this is obviously if you're going to print it, because this will be your stencil. Last thing to do before printing would be to just flip that canvas. And that is because you're going to be doing it on the back of glass, not the front, so you want this to be mirrored. Image rotation, flip canvas horizontal. And that kind of mirrors it. And that's exactly what you want. If you've got a printer, print this out. If not, I'll show you what I'm going to do with it. So firstly, I'm just going to rotate it, and that's because the method I'm going to use is I'm actually going to trace this off the screen. So let's just fit this on the screen, something like that. Here we go, there's my picture. Here's a bit of paper. Perfect. All I need to do is trace that now. I'm just going to make sure, I think that's going to be about the right size. And all I want to be tracing, nowhere near the kind of detail that this kind of threshold filter has done. I just want the solid black bits. You know, so looking at this, not sure how well you can see that there, but, you know, I want something like the eyes. I'm not doing this neatly at all. Also, I wouldn't press very hard because you'll bugger up your laptop screen. So ever so gently, I'm doing this with a 2B pencil just because there's a softer pencil, so it's quite dark. Right, and that is what I've got, and that is going to work perfectly. So, show you what we'll do next. Right, so this is the fruits of my labour. If you're fortunate, you'll have a printer and it will look a lot nicer than this, but it doesn't have to be accurate. Next thing I'm going to be using is a pounce wheel. This is going to sort of perforate as I trace around the lines that I've drawn, or, you know, similarly trace around the sort of black areas if you used a printer. So let me just move this, and then we can see this being done close up. You want to be on either a wooden surface or a hard cardboard surface. I'm going to be pushing hard, just tracing around the lines that I've drawn. As accurately as you can, but, you know, I mean, the drawing's hardly accurate, so it's not going to make too much of a difference if you go out the lines a bit. Now, someone did tell me a great tip, commented, because I did a video on this process, which is how to kind of, I can't even remember what it was called, it's like hand painting, but someone messaged me and said you can do this process by drawing it in charcoal and then almost rubbing it on, like when you used to kind of trace when you were a kid, like flip the thing over, rub it on the back of the glass, and that would actually transfer the charcoal onto the glass. So that's a really good one. I'm going to have a little play around with, because I absolutely hate using pounce powder because it just gets everywhere. But in this case, I haven't got any charcoal, so pounce it is. Okay, so I've run the pounce wheel around the whole of the design. Now what I'm going to do is flip this over, and using a fine grit, which in this case is 240 grit sandpaper, I'm just going to sand over those raised bits to kind of just give that pounce a little bit more opportunity to get through the tiny holes. So otherwise you can kind of close the holes when you sort of start hitting the pounce pad against it. So this just helps that to kind of get through. Right, so now time to apply the pounce to the back of the gold. The reason I'm in the shed is because this is a messy process. I would strongly advise against doing it indoors. I've loaded this, which is a pounce pad. I'm not going to go through that whole process because I've already covered this in a video. I'm going to put a link to that up here. It goes into the detail of the pounce wheels, what different types of pounce, like different colours are best for different surfaces, and how to load this and use it. But for now, it's loaded with black pounce, which is sort of like a charcoal powder. This is it, covered in a kind of sort of felt sponge. I'm going to kind of pat and rub this over this surface, and that's going to go through the little holes and leave us a kind of imprint of Clint on there. So firstly, just going to load this pad and do that by giving it a few whacks. Right, let's have a look. So let's see. Let's have a look where we're at. Getting there. Doesn't need to be too bold, but it certainly needs to be bolder than that. So let's get that a real good kind of pat and rub over that. Let's have a look now. And you can blow this because it will blow away the kind of excess surface pounce, but not the stuff that's gone through the holes. So you can see that really helps when you kind of blow that. I'm going to do that a little bit more, but that's nearly enough for me. You know, I can see where all of the key lines are on that. But let's just give ourselves a bit more of a fighting chance. Kind of really load this up. Right, so before I crack on with drawing, just going to cover a couple of things. The first is I've got my picture up, the original photo, and I've flipped it horizontal, again, because, you know, we want it mirrored so that when we flip the glass over, it's the right way round. What I've got is this little toolkit here. I bought this off Amazon, and it was about, I don't know, 10 quid, I think. It's basically a scraper toolkit. And what I'm going to be using is this. It's really cool. It's got a kind of sharp, but, well, not thick, but thicker than the other end. And this is what I'm going to be doing to block out a lot of the black. Then, when you take the lid off on the other end, there's this really little fine point. And that's what I'm going to be using to shade the other areas. When I say shade, I'm going to be using the cross-hatching technique, which I can show you now. So, let's just pop a bit of glass here. Sorry, pop a bit of paper here. So, in the dark areas, I'm just going to kind of go around with my scraper tool and kind of paint them in black. Doesn't have to be tidy, doesn't have to be kind of completely solid, there can be gaps in it. Cross-hatching is where you use a build-up of lines to create shade. So, let's just start. I should have used a better pencil. This is a 6B, which is a really soft pencil. So, lines one way, that's one shade, always coming out of the black, and then coming the other way as well. And you'll see that that kind of creates a gradient. Doesn't have to just be one way, you know, you can come at it from all different directions. So that's the kind of theory, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start using this, blocking out some of that black, and by that I mean these thick areas up here around the eyes, the deep kind of wrinkles, that area around the nose, the mouth, and maybe a little bit under here. Yeah, you can see where it's jet black. That I'm going to do using a marl stick. The reason for that is because if I lean my hand on this, I'm going to rub away the pounce that I've put on there. So I'm going to use my marl stick, I'm going to lean, and then I'm going to sort of draw in those areas here. When I say draw in, this is going to scratch the gold away, leaving clear glass behind it. So I'm just going to change the camera angle, probably set up a couple of cameras because I think this might be a little bit difficult to film, and then crack on with the first area of just blocking out. So Clint's looking pretty good, and although that might look pretty techy, it's so loose and sort of easy. As long as you've marked those first few bits out with the kind of thick tip, you then don't have to worry about smudging the pounce, and then you can just, just squiggle around really. I mean, hang on, let me hold this up with the black behind it. You can see none of those lines are tidy, just me squiggling around. So now to sort of finish this up, all I need to do is apply some black paint. So just got some black enamel, and then just going to paste it all over the back of this. I need some new black enamel, because that is like porridge.